Hey everybody, this is JDGaming back today with an update to my personal spin on Traptrix. Now this may not be the best for purists of the Traptrix theme, but those of you who've been with me for a while know that I have my history rooted in Earth themes. I've loved Naturia Beast forever, that's why I loved 𝗪𝗠𝗡𝗘𝗧 Psychics, and I've visited Traptrix in some form or another for a very long portion of my time on YouTube as well. Even recently I did 𝗖𝗢𝗡𝗘𝗖𝗧 and 𝗪𝗏𝗡, which are two different alphabet soup homages, you could say, to the Hat era of 2014. And so, yeah, this is just an update to the deck I made about a year ago, right when links were first coming out. Nowadays, we have so many more resources available to us in more link monsters, new sets coming out, and of course, Forbidden and Limited list changes, giving us access to cards like Torrential Tribute, just tools we didn't have before. So I thought it'd be fun to revisit just one of my favorite decks. If you have no idea what the heck's going on in this thing, not to worry, because it's a let's build as always. I'm going to go through and explain my choices, and I know I'm kind of known for being wordy and, you know, very thorough, but today we're going to be right on point with all of the key things that you need to know about the strategy. And as always, I do have the timestamp in the description box down below in a table of contents format for all the different sections. So if you want to just see the profile, skip to the end and see the profile. But then if you have questions, feel free to check out the middle part of the video, where hopefully I did a decent job explaining what was going through my head. But without further ado, let's build Traptrix. The first step in building any deck is to establish a theme and then to build a core that's able to support your theme's goals. And we can't talk about Traptrix without first discussing the main deck all-star, Traptrix Myrmeleo. So she represents the theme in its entirety by being an Earth level 4 monster. She's an insect, which is one of the two possible types, the other which is plant, and then she has 1600 attack that falls into the pattern of all the Traptrix of having a stat sum of 2800. Little fun fact there, if you know one of the stats, you can figure out the other so that you know if it's a good idea to, you know, lone fire for that Dionaean defense position or whatever you would like to do. They all have 3 abilities. The first is a continuous effect that they all share, in that the Traptrix monsters are unaffected by the effects of whole normal trap cards. So that's really good back in 2014 hat format, not so much nowadays, but you might be able to get through your opponent's cheeky side deck tech or something like that with that kind of an ability. Even with bottomless at 3, that doesn't come up all the time, which is kind of sad, but whatever. You're playing her because she gives you advantage through her first and second effects for normal and special summons. So on normal summon, Myrmeleo is a Stratos for your whole normal trap cards. So now you can build a big board involving something like Naturia Beast and then set the best trap hole for the situation, either to take apart your opponent's board or to prevent it from being put together in the first place. And that's just a really powerful card in that it's a level 4 Earth monster you can leverage as a launching pad into your combos, and it's gonna, I guess, self-sufficiently protect your board and bolster that setup all at one time. So that's really cool. And then if it's special summoned, you're able to go and destroy a back row your opponent controls. So it could be a pendulum card, floodgate, or bait out something. Whatever the case, it gives you value however it's played. And since we want to open with this card, because it's so flexible offensively and defensively, we do run the 3 to maximize our chances of opening with Myrmeleo. Dionaea is a powerful card, but we play it at 2 as just that, a power card, because you don't necessarily want to open with this one. So 1700 attack is very solid. You don't think that 100 attack matters a lot until you realize, wait, that extra 100 attack lets me kill 𝗪𝗓𝗪𝗓 and all this other stuff. So very commonly you're able to take advantage of that extra bulk other than just by attacking directly, so I do like that. Again, she is a plant, so you can bring her out with Lone Fire Blossom, which is pretty cool because that synergy lets you trigger her special summon effect whenever you would like. And let's see, we'll go the normal first, just because it's the same order, right? So the normal summon effect here is to revive your Traptrix Myrmeleo, which will let you go and pop a card, and now you have 2 monsters to leverage into a play. So that's already really, really cool. And then if you special summon her, you can take any of your trap cards, there are your trap hole trap cards that you've already used, set it back to the field, and then you're able to use it as long as it's within that turn cycle. During your next turn's end phase, that card's banished if it's still on the field, but most likely you're choosing something that can be played anyway. And, you know, even if you lone fire into this thing during your turn, it gives you until your next turn's end phase, so it'll never banish it that same turn. You have time to be able to use it during your opponent's turn. So that's a very nice effect. But really, I like using this thing because it gets you another monster like a Myrmeleo, or worst case scenario, another copy of Dionaea, and that lets you leverage it into Traptrix Rafflesia. So this thing is a solid supporting monster. Unfortunately, it also follows the theme of Traptrix in that it's got 300 attack to add up with its 2500 defense to the 28 cap, but whatever, you know, it's a useful card no matter what. So it needs 2 level 4 monsters. They can be anything, which is very flexible, and it has 4 very powerful abilities. The first one is it gives itself immunity to all trap card effects. So unless your opponent catches it with Solemn Strike, even that can't touch it once it's using its later ability, which is pretty darn sweet. Then it has a pair of abilities that in tandem protect all your other Traptrix monsters from targeting cards, destruction by cards, or destruction by battle, which is quite nice. And then the last ability is one where you can replicate a trap hole by detaching a material anytime the activation timing of one that lies in your deck is met. You just send that card from your deck to the grave, and this card's monster effect becomes that card's ability. So that's really cool, because in tandem with your Myrmeleo, you're able to go and easily access cards like the generic bottomless trap hole, which would let you go and swallow a pendulum summons, or, you know, your opponent's 𝗍𝗍𝗏 or another recurring monster, or just, you know, get rid of your opponent's one extra deck play that they need to be able to continue going off. I like the 1 copy of Floodgate Trap Hole because if your opponent happens to summon something that's not a link monster into that zone, oh man, they're going to be salty because they're stuck there unless they can fuse it away or tribute it off. And it does keep it there until, well, pretty much until the end of time, unless you flip it up or something. So I do like that ability. We can play something as specific as Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, which, you know, it's kind of narrow. It only works when a monster that was special summoned that turn activates its effect on your opponent's side of the field, and if that happens, you negate it and destroy that card. But again, it's very easy to trigger on something like Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, Nightmare monsters in general. You know, just a lot of link monsters these days have abilities that you use upon summon. That's why you play them, and this card can be accessed from the main deck if you would like to actually snipe those cards. So I really like that ability. But by far my favorite of the trap holes is Treacherous Trap Hole. So this thing lets you destroy 2 monsters on the field anywhere. You just can't play this thing if you have any trap cards in your grave. And you may be thinking, well, JD, why are you playing this thing in a Traptrix deck with Trap Hole and other normal trap cards and maybe even Solemns and whatnot? Well, the whole idea is between Myrmeleo and Rafflesia, you can always access this thing pretty much before you ever see a trap card in your graveyard, and it lets you not only defensively prevent your opponent from putting together a board, but you can proactively use this if you go second to break your opponent's board by going for just a rank 4 in Rafflesia. So I really do like Treacherous Trap Hole for that reason. It's just an all-around great card. Just a fun fact, remember that if your Rafflesia copies an ability of a trap card, it's still treated as its own monster effect, so don't treacherous your own Rafflesia unless you want to get that card sent to the graveyard. When this card first came out with the, or rather when the Rafflesia first came out, that interaction confused a lot of people, confused me as well for a bit, so don't let yourself fall into that trap. While it's a tall order to discuss every possible trap hole card in a deck profile like this that I could have chosen, I did want to go and talk about the 3 monsters that I didn't include, mainly because I feel like that warrants discussion in why did I just stop at 2. So the main reason is Myrmeleo and Dionaea get you free cards, which makes them viable in a format that's much faster and lets you take that advantage and translate it into a board that's not necessarily restricted to just Traptrix. 𝗪𝗫𝗪𝗃 is pretty similar. For a while I was experimenting with this card, that's why I still was able to find it. It's got 2000 defense, it's a plant, so you can bring it out with Lone Fire in its best stat. Awesome. Trigger its ability by activating a whole normal trap card, and that lets you go and take a Traptrix monster that's not 𝗪𝗫𝗪𝗃 and either add it to your hand or set it, or special summon it to the field rather, which is pretty cool, except you realize, wait a second, I get a free card, but only if I activate a trap card that has to be set first, and I probably have to draw into it. So it ends up becoming, I bog down my deck with more trap holes just to trigger this thing, and the advantage I get off of it is a bit too slow. So it's a very intriguing card design. I like that fact, but I think it would have been better a long time ago with triple Lone Fire Blossom than nowadays where the format's just way too fast for this card. So that's why it kind of got de-sleeved and demoted, you know. I don't even have a Trax in my main box anymore. I couldn't find it anywhere, mainly because it's mainly a side deck card, I feel. It's an 1800 beater, which is okay. It's a step up from the 1700 Dionaea, but its 2 abilities only let you play around very specific scenarios. So it lets you play trap holes from your hand, which is kind of cool if you have more zone necessities, I guess, in Can't Animal. I don't know. You'd still only be able to play them into an open zone. But the big thing there is, again, you need to bog your deck down with more trap hole cards. And then its other ability is the main side deck ability, I call, where you can get through trap negation on any of your normal trap cards. So even your mirror forces and stuff can't be negated by your opponent's cards, which is quite nice, but it's just such a narrow scope of ability that most side decks these days aren't playing that, even if your opponent's playing some trap negation. So realistically, Atrax just isn't the best. You're not getting any card for playing it, and so it's more of like, yeah, it protects you from your negation, but you could just play something else. Like, if you want to play more trap holes, then just play Card of Demise to draw into them, so that like you don't have to play them from your hand for any advantage. You don't have to play that just to get through your opponent's negation cards. Like, there are so many alternatives that I feel like Atrax isn't the best. And then this card, I still have sleeved because I was playing it until recently. I feel like this thing still has potential, but it needs a normal summon for it to grab you a Traptrix monster from your deck to your hand. So I used to play this last year by saying, okay, so I'm going to go for my combo, play this on my additional normal summon or whatever, get it to the field, and then next turn I'll use Dionaea, because if this thing dies or I use it as material, Dionaea will bring it back, and it gives me insurance for the next turn so I don't run out of steam. And that aspect of it is still respectable, but the problem is it's so hard to wait around for a normal summon when I could play any suite of other cards that just does so much more instantly. The Mantis has potential just for being able to fetch the Dionaea, but I just don't think it's the best use of the normal summon here. And then its other ability combos with Dionaea by letting you bounce back a back row so that it doesn't get banished or whatever, but it's just not the best thing. Like, it doesn't even let you activate the trap you set that turn. If it had that type of ability, then I would love this thing, because I'd be like, yeah, I love the mind games you could play with this. When your opponent plays into your trap or tries to kill it, you just swap it out for another one and activate that instead, like a torrential. That'd been sweet, but it doesn't even let you do that. So Mantis is kind of a conservative fix, I feel like, or a conservative addition to the Traptrix theme. Maybe if we get some card that lets you normal summon them more easily, or perform an additional normal summon. Maybe if there's a trap hole that says when your opponent summons a monster, normal summon one trap hole or a Traptrix monster from your hand or deck or something, then it'd be awesome. But I don't see anything like that coming in the near future, and until something like that really game-breaking happens, I don't think Mantis will be the best choice in any of these strategies. One of my viewers so affectionately said last time that you can't have a JDGaming profile without plants, and I don't know how I strayed from psychics to plants so much, but honestly it's true. But in my defense, this time Lone Fire Blossom and the Predaplant engine has a lot of synergy with this strategy, and it's just justified in my opinion. So Lone Fire Blossom lets you tribute it to go and summon any plant from your deck, including another copy of itself, and that's really cool because, like I mentioned, you can trigger your Dionaea instantly, but it also lets you go for your Predaplant engine with 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪 Scorpio. This thing lets you discard a monster from your hand in order to fetch a copy of 𝗪𝗏𝗡𝗄𝗄, who will let you add a fusion spell from your deck to your hand. Cool thing with the discard you got to keep in mind is I can discard Myrmeleo or even another copy of Dionaea, and if I have one in hand, I can normal it, and now everything's live right off the bat. So it actually makes a lot of sense to play this because, again, this engine through the Brilliant Fusion play will end up getting us all of the additional plays necessary, including the normal summon, some extra special summons along the way, whatever. But the spell you grab is Brilliant Fusion, which basically lets you summon a Gem Knight monster directly from the extra deck by using materials that you have in your main deck. Unfortunately, not the hand, which is, you know, god-awful when you play the Garnets and stuff. That's why you have to play, in this strategy, I feel, 2 Garnets. If nothing else, these are level 4 Earth monsters, and they synergize nicely with all of your plays, especially when we get to some of the tech choices later. And you go and use it with a light monster to go Seraph Knight, which will get you an additional normal summon. So, oh, it comes together. Now I can summon additional Lone Fires for more plays there, or I can bring out Dionaea or whatever, and yeah, go from there. Plus, she's an Earth monster, so you can go for things like Mrs. Radiant, and actually this thing's quite useful because you get extra Earth monsters onto the board by using Trick Clown as your light monster, along with Thousand Blades as your Earth monster, because, you know, these guys work nicely together. Inflicts damage to you, comes back from the grave if you've taken damage, and the way you search Thousand Blades consistently is through 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪 Invoker, who's a generic rank 3 monster who can use the 2 Predaplant monsters in just a combo. So this isn't quite the exact same, oh my gosh, this lets me summon this crazy board every single time I draw into the plant engine like we had last time with the Junk Doppel deck, but it gives you a solid access to your infrastructure and gives you a launch launching point from which you can combo off with the other tech cards that are in your hand, and then you'll be able to complete the rest of the board. In a lot of the test hands I had, I was able to ultimately create a big board by using this as a starter. Now let's talk tech. I like playing a single copy of 𝗪𝗚𝗡𝗘𝗊 because this recursive level 1 Earth tuner just synergizes nicely, lets you go Mrs. Radiant, and of course lets you go for Naturia Beast off of any of your Traptrix or other level 4 Earth monsters. Plus, since it comes back for free, you're able to go and use your single copy of Foolish Burial, which not only gets this thing out onto the field as a free monster, but you can use it on your Trick Clown if you would like. You can use it on a Myrmeleo to get a Dionaea setup. Lots of flexibility, so that all ties together. And as a level 1 tuner that comes back, you can combine it with 2 level 4 monsters to go Trishula, which is still, with all the hand traps in the game, one of the mightiest synchros that you can bring out. So just these 2 synchros, mainly because there are some really important Xyz monsters I wanted to play in this very easy level 4 spam deck. And so, no Spore, just for the extra deck reasons. If we had access to more cards in the extra, I definitely would be considering Spore. You could play around with it if you'd like with Link monsters, but that's just what I ultimately chose. Then I play a single copy of Instant Fusion with Carbonala Warrior, because this is essentially just a level 4 Earth Warrior, so you're able to combo off with this in much the same way as your other pieces, and you fetch this if you already have Brilliant Fusion in your hand, so the 𝗪𝗠𝗃𝗘𝗍 still gives you a value through using this suite of cards. Then we have, for the Brilliant Fusion, to make that even better, a Damage Juggler, which is an alternative light monster. So if you don't need the Trick Clown onto the field, you don't necessarily want the 1000 Blades for that combo, basically you can yard this thing instead, banish it, and add Hat Tricker to your hand, who special summons itself for free if there are at least 2 monsters anywhere on the field between both players. So very easy to bring out. It's an Earth monster, and you're able to combo off much like the Instant Fusion play, much like 𝗪𝗠𝗏𝗏𝗏 or whatever. Just a free piece that lets you go Naturia Beast or for your Xyz summon. So I like that. And then if nothing else, if you draw Juggler, hey, he's a hand trap that prevents you from taking damage once, so he's kind of okay there as well. One Goblinberg is an additional warrior, because although we're playing the 1000 Blades, if you draw that, yeah, you can pitch that with the Predaplant engine, but you would still ideally like something to summon off of your 𝗪𝗪𝗡𝗅 Invoker, and this card is pretty decent because it fits the bill as a potential target. But on top of that, if you just draw a Goblinberg, you could play it and then trigger the special summon abilities of your Traptrix, or bring this out with a Lone Fire or 𝗪𝗚𝗡𝗘𝗊 to go for Naturia Beast. It gives you a lot of plays. This thing's pretty much decent at everything, but not amazing at any one aspect, and that's why I play 1 copy of this. It just happens to round out the 𝗪𝗪𝗡𝗅 Invoker and gives us a lot of combo potential from there. 1 Monster Reborn, just because this is a generic combo enabler, and you can bring back an entire Naturia Beast or Link monster to propagate your plays further, so I do like that. Raigeki is important because you're able to clear your opponent's established board, because remember, the trap holes other than your Treacherous pretty much deal with things preventatively. Raigeki is able to push things out of the way once they're already there, so I do like it for that purpose. And similarly, I like 3 Torrential Tributes. Now I admit, this thing would be a lot better in a more pure Traptrix variant, because remember, Rafflesia bestows protection to all your other Traptrix monsters, and it itself is unaffected by hole cards or any trap cards in general as long as you have a material. But yeah, sometimes you lose something, but if you have Naturia Beast, you probably won anyway. It'll protect all your Traptrix monsters, including Rafflesia, clear the board so you can attack directly for damage that helps you win, and on top of that, your Mrs. Radiant will come back. It's very easy to set up the 1000 Blades combo with the Trick Clown every turn to keep recurring you materials. So overall, very powerful card that helps you get rid of your opponent's forces while you don't really lose too much. Then I like playing the Solemn Brigade of triple strike and a single warning. Essentially, the strikes are useful just because that's a free cost. Basically, you're able to get rid of monsters that preventatively or after the fact. So it's kind of a hybrid. Even though it's not a normal trap, it still synergizes nicely with what you're trying to do. So there's that. And then warning is just a power card. You can afford to pay 2K. Even with Instant Fusion and the Trick Clown constantly recycling itself, you can easily afford to play these guys. Not so much Judgment. I just feel kind of worried maining Judgment when you have life point payment cards like this, so that's kind of why I chose these other cards instead of the 1 copy of Judgment. And then Imperial Order is another reason. This thing is awesome because it's just another way we can access a Naturia Beast type of effect. Other than a few power spells that you can easily play around and then play the Imperial Order, it's not so much of an issue, but it does do a lot on the current metagames where Sky Strikers and things are everywhere. So there's that. Then to finish up the extra deck, I like playing Underclock Taker just for its flexibility. You can play this instead of Mrs. Radiant or with Mrs. Radiant, and it still gives you a zone, and then you can climb with it, so that's kind of interesting. Then I play the Decode Talker. I realize Nightmare Unicorn's a good way to get rid of things as well, but I liked Decode Talker in this strategy because usually you're using this in scenarios where you climb up from a link 2, just because you have like a free Seraph Knight or something you'd like to clear off of your board. And in that case, now you have the ability to power this guy up to make up for the loss in attack points from consolidating into a Rafflesia. Remember, Rafflesia only has 300 attack points. That's really sad, especially if you lost 2 monsters for it. So this kind of helps make up for it by becoming stronger. And if you have a Naturia Beast or something with the Rafflesia, sack the Rafflesia once you've used its effect and protect your beast from targeting, and now you have 2 really strong monsters and your opponent's going to have a much tougher time breaking your board if they can at all. So I do like what Decode's able to do. It's a very budget option, but it's a very powerful, uniquely fitting option for this strategy. Then one 𝗪𝗪𝗓, simply because it's 𝗪𝗪𝗓, you have the ability to access it with your Brilliant Fusion and Predaplant engine. It's an earth monster and gives you a free special summon, so it kind of like 𝗪𝗍𝗓𝗪𝗓. It's like it does a little bit of everything and does it pretty well. This didn't exist back when I made the deck last time, but it's a shoo-in just because of everything it's able to do. And then I like playing Abyss Dweller and 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 and Tornado Dragon and the Utopia package for our rank 4s. And the reason for this is basically you're able to go Dionaea or the Trick Clown engine and go for rank 4s quite easily. So we need some sort of toolbox to take advantage of it. Yeah, it could be link monsters, but I feel this is good because now we cover Grave with Dweller, 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪𝗧 covers Field, Tornado Dragon covers back row, and then Utopia the Lightning does double duty, stopping back row from activating, stopping monster effects from activating, and, you know, kind of shutting down the graveyard. Plus, on top of that, it doubles its attack to 5,000 once, which allows you to do massive damage, which again is a big central theme for this deck, where you're trying to recoup the losses from consolidating into a Rafflesia. So just a nice toolbox to round out the capabilities of the extra deck. And now, instead of a combo segment of sorts, since the Predaplant engine ends up giving you more of a launching pad than anything else for this strategy that you kind of have to play based on what you draw into, I thought a sample hand might be a decent way to show off this deck's capabilities and kind of give you a feel for how it might play. This is going to be totally random, so I have no idea what's going to come up, so I can't guarantee that this is representative of what the deck is able to do all the time or anything, but, you know, it'll give you some taste for the flavors of this strategy, if nothing else. So we're going to be doing that real quick and, you know, just have some fun with this. So we open with a hand of 5 cards. Let's say we're going first, right? So we don't have the advantage of the 6th card. So what do I do with this hand? Well, right off the bat, I can see I'm going to summon Lone Fire Blossom, and since I already have Glow Up Bulb in my hand, I have no reason to try and keep Lone Fire Blossom in my deck unless I'm trying to go for Dionaea down the line. But for now, let's thin the deck a bit. I want to get rid of my Lone Fire Blossoms and access a copy of 𝗪𝗓𝗔𝗍𝗓𝗔. Now the cool thing here is, alright, I have my 1,000 Blades in hand and Glow Up Bulb, so out of these two, I want this thing to hit the graveyard for its discard effect, which will let me then go and fetch my 𝗪𝗓𝗔𝗍𝗓𝗔 from the deck. I think I said 𝗪𝗓𝗔𝗍𝗓𝗓𝗔 when I summoned that for Scorpio. Maybe, I don't know. Did I miss it? Yeah, I missed it somewhere. So that's one of the problems with these live things. You know, nothing's planned, so you screw up sometimes, but whatever. We're having fun with this, right? We don't have Brilliant Fusion yet, so I'm going to grab that. And this is also why I play the 2nd copy of Garnet. Yes, you're slightly more likely to draw into your Garnet when you have the extra copy, but basically, mathematically speaking, whereas you only go from a chance of opening, I guess you go up from a chance of 15% with a 6-card hand. It's like 12 to 15% chance if you have 1 or 2 of these, up to about 25 to 28% chance of opening if you have 2 of these things. You know, that's kind of sizable, but you also have to remember that the chance of you drawing both of them is fairly slim, versus now if this thing is dead, now all like my Brilliant Fusions are dead, my Predaplants are dead, that's too much of a risk at 1 for that 12 to 15%. That's, if it makes sense, that's why I don't like the 12 to 15% chance of me just losing the game outright. That's why I'd rather just draw the Garnet every once in a while by having 2, and then I can still make my plays. So here, we're going to go ahead and overlay for our Mx Saber Invoker, which is going to allow us to go and detach this thing. And since we already have 1,000 Blades in the graveyard, this is why we play that Goblinberg as a backup card. So kind of like this, you know, we're able to show some thoughts and things in action, thoughts and theories. And now we have 2 Earth monsters, so we take that, material falls off and we go for 𝗪𝗓𝗡𝗊, let's just go for our Mrs. Radiant. And then from here, I can go ahead and activate my Brilliant Fusion, which will let me, of course, go and yard Trick Clown along with Garnet, and that will allow me to go for a Gemknight Seraph Knight. So we're going to go ahead and summon that to the field. In the middle zone here is what I usually do for this combo, because now what happens is I take the 1,000 points of damage, I summon this thing out, and I get to go ahead and add Heroic Challenger 1,000 Blades to the field. Now from here, there are a couple different avenues that I can take this strategy here. So I see, I have a glow-up bulb in my hand, and I could utilize it with this, and that'd be pretty sweet because that lets me go for, let's see, glow-up bulb would be Naturia Beast here. This could even come back and I can make another monster. So actually, I think that's what I am going to do. So I'm gonna go ahead, normal summon this, extra time with the Seraph Knight, go and synchro the two of these guys for a Naturia Beast. And then from here, I can go mill one card. Oh no, it's a Torrential Tribute, and go for Glow Up Ball back to the field. And this is blasphemy, right? Oh no, it's a single monster, even though it's a Link 2. But I'm doing this because now I have 4 monsters for the ability of my 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪. So now I get to go and summon this in the opposite zone here, which is kind of like what we did in the 𝗪𝗪𝗡𝗘𝗘 deck. So now I have 3 zones I can summon into if I really want. This triggers, so now I draw 1, 2, 3, 4 cards, and then from here I'm able to shuffle back 3 of them. So I want to put this away. I don't necessarily need Dionaea right now, because I don't have any Traptrix monsters in the grave or Trap Hole cards in my graveyard. So I'll put that card away, and then Myrmeleo is pretty solid, Monster Born solid. Out of these cards, honestly, I would want to have the Treacherous first, so we'll put the Bottomless away and we can just fetch it. So we'll put these back. Honestly, the order doesn't matter too much because they're about equally live when you get to the bottom 3, and you're never even going to get to that point in the first place. So now from here, I can go ahead and special summon my Myrmeleo to the field. You know, my opponent doesn't have a backer in this case because I'm going first, let's say. So I activate Monster Reborn, and this can bring back a monster. So let's bring back something totally worthless here. Let's just bring back, you know, Gemknight Garnet. Reality, I'd bring back Trick Clown. Actually, I'll do that. We'll do Trick Clown just to show you the reality of this, right? So we go for that. And now using these 2 monsters, I can go and special summon in defense position a Traptrix Rafflesia, which is very solid. I'll put this over here just so that it's not like glaring with the camera there, but assume it's here. I can set Traptrix Trap Hole or Treacherous Trap Hole face down, and now with this field, I have a Naturia Beast that protects this card until I need it. This card can snipe 2 of my opponent's monsters. This card can swallow out my opponent's cards. And this guy's defense is actually a whopping 2,800 because it got boosted by 𝗪𝗪𝗧𝗪. And if I decide to get rid of the Trick Clown as a material, then now I can go special Trick Clown, and then I go took the damage, so I special summon this guy back. And so you could see how this gives you a lot of momentum. It's almost like a pendulum deck of sorts because of this pair of cards, and you're very easily able to bring out at least one of these guys, if not both of them, through all the other tech choices you have. So yeah, that's just a sample of what this deck can do. Obviously not representative of every game or anything, but just to give you an idea, most of the time you will open with some access to the Predaplant engine, and this is what this deck is trying to do. Oh, but I just realized here, so this is something that is just a random stray hit of the Torrential Tribute, which makes the Treacherous dead. So don't do what I did, put the Bottomless face down, put the Treacherous away, and grab another card. But even then, you have access to 2 Trap Holes to be able to snipe 2 monsters. But yeah, just a little extra thing, you know, that happens sometimes when you don't have things scripted. If you watched the video in its entirety, thanks. Hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing the creation of this deck as much as I did putting it together and updating it for you guys. We'll start off with the main deck here. So we have Glow Up Bulb, 𝗪𝗪𝗡𝗘𝗪, and Heroic Challenger 1,000 Blades as a lot of one-of techs. Then we have triple Lone Fire Blossom, Damage Juggler, Hat Tricker, and Trick Clown for our Performage engine. And then we have the Predaplant 𝗪𝗪𝗇𝗑𝗪 and triple O for Scorpio, double Dionaea, and triple Myrmeleo for Traptrix, double Gemknight Garnet, and then for spells we have triple Brilliant Fusion, Foolish Burial, Instant Fusion, Monster Reborn, and 𝗪𝗪𝗡𝗪. And then for traps we have double Bottomless Trap Hole, Floodgate Trap Hole, Imperial Order, triple Solemn Warning, or Solemn Strike, and 1 Warning, excuse me. Then we got triple Torrential Tribute, Traptrix Trap Hole Nightmare, and Treacherous Trap Hole to round out a 40-card main deck. And then for the extra deck, we have Mrs. Radiant and Underclock Taker at Link 2. Then we have Decode Talker at 3, 𝗪𝗠𝗪𝗔 at link 4. Then we have Naturia Beast and Trishula at Synchro Monsters of level 5 and 9. Then we have MX Saber Invoker at rank 3 for Xyz, Abyss Dweller, 𝗪𝗠𝗪𝗧𝗏, Tornado Dragon, Traptrix Rafflesia, and the Utopia package with Lightning for our rank 4 Toolbox, and finally Carbonala Warrior for Instant Fusion and Gemknight Seraph Knight for our Brilliant Fusion. That's the end of this video, but there's plenty more where it came from. I invite you to explore the playlists on screen to see what else I have to offer, and if you really liked what you saw today, consider subscribing to JD Gaming for more Yu-Gi-Oh videos. Thanks guys, this is JD Gaming, hope you guys enjoyed as always, and I'll see you guys next time.